Hola, excuse me, hola, cage fighting connoisseurs. This is a cursed show. God, I feel like Todd beaten against the canvas by Frank Mir. This is KidNativeBloodYellow.com, joined by Zane Simon for hopefully not completely ill-fated 6-1 Mir versus Duffee. Oh my God, Duffee has no striking technique whatsoever, and he really paid the price for it tonight.
Yeah, I keep praying for one heavyweight to under 30 to just get over a little bit. Like get in. I'm not even saying like be champ. I'm saying
Make a
be
run.
be in the top 5. Be a top 5 guy. That's all I want. Not so much.
Going places. That's all we're asking is go places.
Yeah,
And uh, and
Duffy's
Todd
not.
Duffee. No, Duffee. We've seen the ceiling of Todd Duffee, and it's
Yeah,
not
I
that
mean,
high.
the thing is that he's only 12 fights into his career. It's not that far, but he's been fighting since 2007. Like the dude's been around for a while, and of course it's heavyweight. In 5 years, dude could be a title contender. Like
It's quite possible,
we
but
could be talking about a 39-year-old Todd Duffee with a UFC belt around his waist.
I don't know about it in the current UFC drug testing environment though. And my God, his striking fundamentals, that winging arm punch he threw out there right before he roared into Mir's left hand, that was that is some of the worst punching I've ever seen in my life. I mean, it's unspeakably bad technique. Unbelievable. Fun fight though.
Yeah, fun as shit.
I mean, and it's clear Duffy's a big, strong, hard hitting dude. I mean, he cracked Mir a couple times, but Mir basically just went out there and gave the punk an ass whipping. That's you know all there relates to it.
Yeah, I mean, not 9 heavyweights out of 10, maybe 8 out of 10. Duffy beats just doing that, but
Sadly, yes.
then the whole like the top 10 of the heavyweight division are all the guys you don't beat just doing that, and there's only 30 heavyweights in the division, so you've just got like this pool of 20 guys sitting there. It's just like, well, fuck, I don't know.
It's pretty much like a tough man contest. They just rounded up anybody who weighed more than 235 pounds and threw them in the octagon and see what happened. And there's a handful of pretty good athletes in that division, and then there's a bunch of dudes that are just big and willing to fight. So
Well, and Duffy's even one of the athletes. Like that's the rough part is.
yeah, he's not one of these lumbering brawlers that you frequently see in the division. But I mean that arm punch, I just
You can't. That is like
if
caused
my
a
7 year
continental
old did that, I
rift.
would be embarrassed. I mean, it's just you know, and then to step right forward like that. I mean, it's just like Conor Rubis must be crying right now. Just think, I mean, just the fundamentals, the everything was wrong with the technique. It was a 1 minute and 13 seconds of fun action, but it doesn't get us anywhere. Frank Mir is not a title contender.
No.
Todd Duffy is not going to be a title contender. So there you have it. Fun night of pointlessness. Thanks for watching the show. Well, no, but we'll run through the card. Tony Ferguson, on the other hand, in the co-main event, is a title contender. Won a dominating decision over Josh Thompson. Got a 30-26 on one judge's scorecard, 30-27 on both the other judges' scorecard. What did you think of Tony Ferguson?
I, on like the one hand, he really like beat the piss out of Thompson, and looked great. Like but part of it is too that rounds 2 and 3 were basically him running downhill. You know, like it was all momentum after he hurt him early. But
Yeah,
early in the fight, we saw a guy who, ended up on his back looking for subs he wasn't getting, ended up getting hit in exchanges when Thompson would return fire and get his feet under him and getting countered. And like, I'm glad Ferguson won because he is a fighter who's just like everything's starting to click. He's entering his prime. He's really dangerous, has a ton of variety in his game. He's really fun to watch. But hopefully this fight's like a big learning experience where he got the win and he can look at all these things and say, okay, I really have to like start shoring up these holes in my game, because if I don't hurt, the next time I'm facing somebody who's not, you know, been 15 years in the sport and is also in their prime, and I can't hurt them, then how am I winning?
Yeah, some of those submission attempts were very ill-advised. I mean, when he was going for Darce attempt after Darce attempt, it was just clearly he's got a lot of technique to tighten up there. And Josh Thompson is a really tough, very, very, very skilled competitor, and so he knows a lot of tricks. He knows how to get out of submissions. He's not going to lose his head. He keeps fighting even when he's hurt. So tough test for Ferguson. Ferguson passed, but like you said, I wouldn't say with flying colors. I,
Yeah.
I give him
I
a
mean,
B
you put him
plus.
in against RDA or Anthony Pettis, and some of those holes then become big problems. Like,
Yeah, big, big problems.
because
And
Thompson's not known as like, he's not a devastating power striker, except when he's got Nate Diaz sort of standing stiff as a rod right there, like willing to eat whatever he throws at him.
yeah, that was really the only time we've ever seen Josh Thompson just pace somebody that was a high level fighter. But nonetheless, 8-fight win streak for Ferguson. He was number 11 going into this. I have to think he's going to be around number 7 after this. We'll see. It's hard to predict what the UFC ranking panel is going to come up with because it's media members. What do you want?
Yeah. Yeah, the UFC ranking panel, that what they're gonna do is they're just gonna switch them, and that's how they seem to solve this every time.
Yep, yep. So Ferguson goes up to 9. Josh Thompson falls down from 9 to I don't know, probably 11. Yeah, you're probably right. But I feel like Ally Aquina, somebody ahead of Josh Thompson on the pecking order now. That's who would you like to see Ferguson fight next? That's Aquina seems pretty logical to me. But has he got
Um,
something booked?
Geez, I don't know. Like basically, I would love to see him fight Edson Barboza. Actually, he hasn't fought Barboza, so
No, he hasn't, and that would be a fun fight. Barboza's a tough test uh, for somebody who's primarily a striker with a little bit of grappling.
yeah, I'd love to see
Not a
him fight
big one.
Barboza. I mean, really, I'd love to see him fight Jury or even Henderson right now. Like
Yeah,
those
Miles
are
Jury
all.
would be fun. Benson Henderson would be a fun test, but he's off to welterweight these days
No,
or
he
money
dropped
weight.
back. He went back because he was gonna fight Michael Johnson on that tough
That's right.
finale
That's
card,
right.
and then they scrapped that fight. So Henderson's just at money weight. He's fighting wherever the UFC needs a body quickly and is willing to pay for it.
Yeah. I wouldn't put Ferguson against Henderson though, because Henderson's not in line for a title shot, and I think he should only Ferguson at this point should only fight guys who are potentially going to be getting a title shot. Benel Dariush might be a fun test for him, but where's Josh Thompson go from here? I kind of hope he retires. I mean, I don't see a title run happening anytime soon, and I really don't want to see the guy take any more brain trauma for no reason.
Well, I always hope fighters retire, so that's kind of like my default position is like, oh, you're 26 and you can make more money you can make money doing anything else. Go do
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
So,
There's a convenience store that needs a clerk, night shift. By all means. Yeah,
but so that's kind of my default position. Beyond that, like I would still watch Thompson fight, other top lightweight vets who may be coming off a lot. I mean, guys like Jim Miller or
yeah, that'd be a fun fight.
or even I know like they've got a fight like Ross Pearson and who's he fighting? The
Evan
Evan
Dunham.
Dunham. Yeah, like
Yeah,
one of them, guys like that who aren't quite like right in the top 15 but are really close. Joe Lozon, like that would be fun, you
yeah.
know?
Lozon and Thompson. That could I could see that headlining a card. Uh,
Yeah.
but
So
yeah,
there are still fights I'd like to see him in, but yeah, I mean, if you want, if he was willing to hang him up, I'm always like, yes, hang him up, go do whatever.
and before we go through the rest of the card, who should Frank Mir fight next? Not anybody in the top 5, I don't believe.
No, I part
Ben
like
Rothwell.
who Ben Rothwell.
Yeah,
That I would be down for that. Ben Rothwell would be a ton of fun. Actually, I
yeah.
think that would be a great fight to set him up with. Because you don't want him fighting Crow Cop again. That fight was miserable.
No, no. I
Um,
really don't want Crow Cup in the UFC at all, but here he is.
yeah,
Um,
but he does need to be fighting. Like Mir is now, he's gonna move up in the rankings after this.
yep.
Probably.
Yeah, he's already top 10, so
Although he
well,
can't move up over Overeem because
no,
Overeem
but
just tooled him.
Mark Hunt might drop down a turn.
Yeah, I could see that. But Rothwell would be a good one. Just Josh Barnett too. Even like if they could make that fight happen.
A
And
rematch
that
with
well, that's
him.
right.
Because
That fight already happened.
Barnett destroyed him, and it was.
Yeah, that's right. I
But I'm
forgot.
sure Mir wants a do-over on that. I mean, I don't feel like that was like the definitive Barnett Mir
Yeah,
fight, but then again,
I don't know.
Barnett.
Heavyweight's just so weird. Like because we've already seen Frank Mir, Roy Nelson. We've already seen Frank Mir, Antonio Silva. Matt Mitrione just totally crapped the bed in his last fight.
Yeah, yeah. Antonio Silva's basically shot. I mean, Alexei Olenek is in the top 14. That's well.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's run through the rest of the card though. Opened up with Lyman Good, getting a KO over Andrew Craig. I think best Lyman Good performance I've ever seen.
Yeah, I mean that's Lyman Goods. It sucks that he's gotten into the UFC really late in his career, but he's also at his peak. Like if
Yeah,
they started sticking him in top 10, top 15 fights, they might as well because it's not like he's going to get a lot better next year.
no,
He's
no. They might as well rush him as hard as they can, and that was a good performance. I don't know how great Andrew Craig is, but good performance from Lyman. Good fight card opener. Then Kevin Casey versus Ildemar Alcantara. Uh, that fight got a lot of hate. It was not great.
it was really bad.
It was
It,
there have
Ilmar
been worse fights, but
Alcantara has gotten like he's one of those fighters that has just been regressing with like every passing day. It feels like every time I see him, it's just worse and worse. Like he had a pretty good showing against Wagner Prado, and then he had a not great fight against Anderson Silva, but he still won. And then he even beat Albert Tumanov, but just everything since that Tumanov fight has just been like a slide. Even his win over
yeah,
Richardson Moriera was just miserable.
yeah, some painfully bad fights, and this one was. I didn't hate it as much as some people did, but it was pretty bad. And then we get to the Fox Sports One card. Sean Strickland, welterweight, got a unanimous decision win over Igor Arahu. This was a fairly action-packed fight. Not skilled necessarily, but action-packed.
Yeah, it was a good back and it was a good well not back and forth, but it was a good win for Strickland. Araja's not really UFC caliber at this
Yeah.
point.
No.
It's unfortunate. Like Strickland and Craig both are middleweights that I think are really poorly served with cutting to welterweight. Like they both look practically skeletal in there,
Yeah,
and
and you're shrinking yourself down and weakening yourself, and then fighting people who are almost guaranteed to be better athletes.
yeah. So like this win for Strickland, like that was a solid win. It got him a bounce back fight, but Ponzinibbio just kind of lit him up.
Yeah,
And that's somebody who then turned around and got totally lit up by Lorenz Larkin.
yeah,
So, Strickland didn't show anything in this fight that says like, oh, well, he solved that problem against this guy who's probably not fit for the UFC.
yeah. That's it said more about Araujo than Strickland.
Yeah,
And that moves on. Bantamweight Hani Yaya took a split decision against Masanori Kanehara. I had it scored for Kanehara myself.
I did too. I thought Kanehara had it 2-1. But by the end of the third round, I could not have given less of a fuck. Like
Yeah, it was,
I enjoyed it for a round and a half. It was fun and like scrambly, and Yaya was obviously trying to do his thing. Kanahara was working against it, and then Yaya just like basically had like one of Kanahara's feet in his hands and was just holding on for dear life. And it was just the most miserable, desperate. Like he got stood up out of a low single. Like that is the saddest thing that you will ever
yeah.
see.
It was utterly feeble. Yaya's conditioning has never been sterling, and we saw that again. Disappointing for Kanehara. I don't feel like either of these guys are going anywhere, though. And
No.
let's move on. Women's bantamweight, Jessica Andrade just put a vicious beating on Sarah Moras. I mean, vicious.
Yeah. Andrade is one of those fighters. Like it looked like she. First of all, this was good to see she actually solved one of her problems mostly, which was not letting herself get caught in stupid submissions. I say mostly because obviously right at the end of the fight she
She
gave her
didn't.
back up and got put in a tight choke by Morris.
Yeah.
But Andrade's one of those fighters. Like she's undersized, but bantamweight is so thin that she might as well just stay there and collect wins. And that
Yeah.
because fighters like Morris are populating the bottom of women's bantamweight, and they are not good at all.
No, no, and she's just got so much physical advantage over a fighter like that. Um, the loss to Renault, we'll talk about Renault in a little bit though, sets her back a little bit, but I think she can put a title run together if she gets the right string of opponents. But
Yeah, it was an aggression loss. It was a loss of a fighter who hadn't learned to check their aggression, was diving into guard over and over and over again. The more she goes on, the more that less that should be a problem potentially. And this was a better showing on that account. Every time the fight went to the ground, she just stepped back away, made Morris get back up, started exchanging with her again, beat her down again.
yeah,
And yeah, it was solid for Andrade. It was a decent showing, and she just needs to keep collecting wins because any fighter that collects wins in that division is in line for a title shot.
indeed. And as long as Ronda Rousey's there, probably a quick submission loss. But moving on, featherweight Sam Sicilia versus Yeltsin Meza, unanimous decision win for Sicilia. I thought it was one of his better performances, although Meza came back late in a way that I was surprised to see.
I wonder if Sicilia didn't have staph or something. Because he had this weird lump on one of his legs that.
I noticed that too, and that was weird. That was either I thought it was maybe a knot.
Yeah, I don't know, but the big thing for me was just like Sam Sicilia basically took this fight to Meza in the one area that Meza could win it, and Sicilia still won it, but it seemed like he made this fight way harder on himself than he had to. I don't know. It was a weird win.
Display of fight IQ, but not a bad performance. But then moving on, the opening card, fight of the main card, Alan Jouban, Matt Dwyer. This was the definition of a entertaining crappy fight. Like,
yeah, I mean, it's the problem that I think you get with it's this whole idea of like big tough guys in the UFC who are not skilled will always make their opponents look terribly ugly because you're just wailing at this big aggressive wall coming towards you. And I think that's what happened with Jouban is that you had this huge guy who's just gonna swing his arms at him like one of those like car dealership guys with the the tube men.
Yes, the inflatable car dealership dude.
Yeah. So I'm just glad that somehow the judges gave Jouban the first round, which I thought he lost, and gave him the win because he clearly deserved to win the fight after.
Yeah, the cartwheel kick was pretty badass, I have to say.
Yeah.
And Matt Dwyer continues to not impress. But the next fight, lightweight Kevin Lee did impress, although I don't know how much that means against James Montessori, who was a short-term call-up. And I presume we'll get to see him get a second chance in the UFC.
Was Muntasvi a short-term call-up? I didn't think he was. No.
No, he wasn't. Well, then he's just terrible then.
No, he's not even terrible. He's a power striker with and a good athlete with no other fundamental game. Like he has no fundamental striking and no real grappling wrestling base.
No. And he looked like he had a serious power disadvantage against Lee, but Lee did what he needed to do. So
Lee looked fantastic. I thought that was that was a great sign in that it showed that Lee can just absolutely run over the lower level of the lightweight division. Like that's what you want to see out of a fighter who's on their way to the top of the division. Is that when they face bad fighters, they should be just destroying them.
Yeah, they should just eat him alive. And he's a very young kid. And who's he training with? He's training out
Extreme Couture down in Vegas, I believe.
Huh. Yeah, so that's a decent camp. And he's only 22, so he's definitely going to be going places. That brings us to bantamweights Manny Gamburian decisioning Scott Jorgensen. A fun back and forth fight. I don't think it has any significance. I think both these guys are pretty much past their sell by date, but it was nice to see them going at it. A lot of back and forth scrambles and exchanges.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was the kind of fight that like it was like Seaver Kawajiri. It's one of those fights that you could make it at any point in their careers, and it probably would have been a really fun back and forth fight. Just
Yeah,
they made it now. Even when they decline, it's still a fun. Even when it's meaningless, it's still a fun back and forth fight. So
yeah. And
it
since
was
we
fun.
know
It
both guys,
re-energized.
yeah, and since we're familiar with both guys, it was fun to watch. So I don't know that it means anything. Although Jorgensen is getting to the point where he's kind of running out of options if he doesn't get a win.
Yeah,
With the
I
next
would.
fight.
I would be actually. I mean, he's kind of an OG for the UFC, but I would really be surprised if he was still with them after this. I mean,
Yeah, he's lost what? One, two, three, four, five,
seven.
6, 7 out of his last 9.
Yeah,
That's pretty bad. He hasn't had a 2-fight win streak since 2011. So yeah, I could see him getting cut pretty
yeah.
clearly.
I would be pretty shocked if they didn't. Honestly.
Yeah. So, and then that brings us to Holly Holm, who utterly dominated Marion Renault. Just
Yeah.
didn't let her get in the fight, but still didn't hurt her.
No, I tweeted this out, and it was a shockingly miserable statistic for Holly Holm that she was 80 something of 222 strikes thrown. So she threw over 200 strikes, only landed 35% of them. And
Man.
this is from
Against a
somebody,
basically immobile opponent.
yeah, this is against an immobile opponent, and this is somebody who was like, a good boxer, like somebody who has a long history as a good striker. Even if people don't think, are like, oh well, her title is inflated and she didn't face, she still was like a championship boxer in women's boxing,
Yeah,
and she's got a long history as a kickboxer, and she in MMA at against even decent like mediocre competition is has no ability to find range whatsoever.
no, very limited, and then no power when she does connect.
Yeah, because the other thing I said, people are like, "Oh, give her time; she'll come along," and she could. I think 2 or 3 years from now, you could be looking at somebody who could be a lot better, a lot more ready for top level competition. But you're also looking at somebody who comes from the same kind of background and has been fighting for a year longer and only like one or two less fights than Joanna and Jacek. Like,
Yeah,
Ioane
yeah,
and Jacek started a year later than Holly Holm, and she is a world destroyer
yeah.
with the
She puts
same
a
kind of
beating.
striking background.
Yeah, and like if Jessica Andrade was to fight Holly Holm, I would definitely pick Andrade to win that fight.
Yeah, it seems like that way right now. I mean, Renault, this was beyond disappointing from her. Like this,
Yeah,
unfortunately, like I thought she would be a pretty good, reasonable talent in that division, but this kind of tells a story that any fighter that's not willing to just basically fall on her is going to beat her.
yeah, quite possibly. She had no idea what to do with Holly Holm out there, but unlike some of these fights we've seen in the women's bantamweight division, she did take a horrific beating. But there are women out there that would have put it just a vicious beating on her. But Holly Holm just doesn't have the power, and I just do not see a title run coming out of Holly Holm.
Like I say, I mean, she's just on a like it's a super standard prospect development track for somebody who's in their 30s and came to the game late. It's going to be like 5 or 6 years into her career before things are really clicking for her, it seems like.
Yeah, and it's hard to say if athletically, and physically she'll be able to hold up under that. And
Or if she'll get to a title shot well before that. She wins another fight after this and they need somebody to face Rousey.
yep, I mean the division is very thin. Let's see, where is she? She's currently ranked number 10, and so
Yeah.
yeah,
But you look at the people ahead of her, who hasn't Rousey beaten ahead of her? And
ooh, yeah, and she's about to beat Betch Correa, and um,
there's
uh,
Amanda Nunez.
yeah,
Otherwise, she's beat Kaufman. She hasn't fought I yet, but she's beat Sarah McMahon, Alexis Davis, Misha Tate, and Kat Zingano. So
yeah,
You have I, Correa, Nunez, and then Holly Holm. And
yeah,
if either Nunez or I stumble, anytime soon.
Yep, it's true. Holly
You
Holm
know,
could be in there. I would like to see Jessica Andrade uh, get a shot at her first because I think Andrade. But then you'd be rushing Andrade into a title shot. She's clearly not ready for it,
yeah,
and she's got more than
somebody's
one
gonna
more
get
match left.
rushed. That's
Yeah,
like the only way to it.
yeah. They're just gonna get fed to Ronda until Ronda goes to Hollywood. So that's it for the card. Back to Mir and Duffee. Boy, that was fun. But it,
Yeah, it was a shit ton of fun.
yeah, yeah. I just got to think that Joe Silva's going, and what did that give me?
Yeah, no
It's like,
kidding. Like they, I just wish like at some point I think what the UFC has to start doing, and this is something Bellator has done to at least like mediocre results, is just get any big guy, like any big guy, and have like 5 or 8 of them at the bottom of the UFC, and just run them around until somebody starts to come out. Like, give
yeah,
those to people and feed people those guys, and really build these heavyweights because nobody is getting past like nobody's climbing into the top 10. Everybody is getting up to that like 15ish area, and then they're fighting an old established talent and they're stumbling hard.
yeah. An old established talent who's already out of title contention
Yeah.
basically permanently, and that just doesn't do anybody any favors. And so, yeah, they need to try to make something of it. But it's only 1 a.m. here in Central Time, so I think we should wrap it up. Any final thoughts on the card?
It was not fun, but it was fun. Like the last 2 fights were really a lot of fun, and everything else was like, yeah, okay.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, this was a night to sit at home and watch fights on Fox Sports One. So it is what it is. You get what you pay for. All right,
Yeah.
thanks, Zane. And remember, give us a like on YouTube. Subscribe to MMANation.com on YouTube. Subscribe to MMA Nation on iTunes. Follow us on Twitter at KidNate at TheZaneSimon. Read us on BloodyElbow.com, and we will be back Saturday for a Saturday afternoon 6th round after the UFC Fight Night 72 in Glasgow, Bisping versus Litas. Are you doing any shows before then? Are you doing a prospectus?
I think I'll be doing a prospectus, and I'm doing a Bellator vivisection before
Okay,
then. So
cool. Anything on the Bellator card we should be looking for?
Michael Venom Page, MVP, is
Oh,
back to do some funky
yes,
kickboxing power.
yes. That will be fun. Well,
Oh, and
cool.
Paul Daly's back, and he will probably look a lot less like the Paul Daly that we all love and want to be awesome. But he's fighting a can, so it may not.
Yeah.
It probably won't matter at all.
Oh, well, good, good, good. All right. Well, that sounds fun. So stay tuned for all that. And adios, MMA aficionados. Thanks a ton, Zane.